Welcome back to U.S. History. Today, we're learning about Chapter 11. Let's get into it. All right, so Chapter 11 is entitled The North and South Take Diverging Paths. Okay, so we've talked about this a little bit. The North is more of a manufacturing and the South is more of an agricultural-based economy, and they had that tariff crisis or the tariffs, fight because they have different goals economically, and so the North and South, they're going to continue to spread and they're going to continue to go different directions. So fair enough? Okay, so we're going to talk about manufacturing versus agricultural base. We just talked about it. What is the Industrial Revolution? That's coming up soon, okay? And then what are interchangeable parts? Why is that a big deal? Who invents that? We're going to learn that. And then we're going to talk about just the growth of cities and how we go from a farming, agricultural society to more of an industrial society. So that's what's coming up right now. Let's get going. Okay, what was the Industrial Revolution? What lessons can we apply to today? Okay, the Industrial Revolution is the first time machines and factories and automation come into play in the workplace. And so you get growth of new industries, but you also get obsolescence. Okay, you no longer need the cottage industry. You no longer need people to weave cloth because the machine can do it so much faster. This is what history says about technology. Technology destroys jobs at the bottom and creates new jobs at the top. Okay, so you can apply that to today. You'll probably need less burger flippers in the future because robots can do that, but you'll need more astronauts or something along those lines, okay? What is life like? We'll talk about it. At your age right now, you'd have been in the workforce a minimum of 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, okay? 12-hour days too. What's the North and South divergence? And that's the biggest deal. That's the title of the chapter, okay? They have different economic paths. Spoiler alert, this is going to lead eventually into the Civil War. Okay, so that's why you have to learn this stuff and why it's so important. So the Industrial Revolution begins in Great Britain. Machines take the place of hand tools. Machines take the place of people. Okay, why does it start in Great Britain? As always, physical geography, human geography. All right. It's got the water power that you'll need to run the machines. It's got the sheep to create the blankets and the textiles and the cloth, okay? And there's a new study that says because there was the Black Death and the people, the population shrunk, the sheep were able to graze on more grass than other places. And so happy sheep, extra cloth, okay? Very good. Okay, you have the spinning jennies. You have these different. I'm never going to ask you the name of the machines. I just want you to understand that the Industrial Revolution, that's the first time the machines are taking over, some of these production practices, and it's shaking the job market. Okay, here's a quick video on the spinning jenny. All right, welcome back. Factory system. All manufacturing steps in one place or one building. How does this change people's lives? Big deal, little deal, no deal? Pretty big deal. Watch this. Before the Industrial Revolution, you have what's called the cottage industry. And when do you start work? Exactly. Whenever you want. Okay? If you make 10 blankets, you make money. If you make 20 blankets, you make more money. You want to make those blankets in the morning or at night or when you have time on the weekend, it's your business because it's kind of out of your cottage. Isn't that interesting? Now when you have a factory, what time do you work? Yeah, when you're told to go to work, 6 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever. Everyone has to be in the same place at the same time in order to make the factory work. This is a big deal. This is when, not that they didn't have clocks, but this is when the clock counts. This is when your life is sort of ordered by time. And so that's a huge change to culture and to civilization, okay? You need to be there. A capitalist is someone that provides capital and then expects a return on their investment. So you can think Shark Tank, you can think stock market. I'm going to give you money for some shares of your company, but then I expect more money back or a dividend, something along those lines. The first power source is water. Now, water can be good or bad. What are some of the negative things about using a river to power your industry? Take a second to think about it. Okay, excellent. The water could freeze over. The water could run out. In extreme cases, water can move, okay? The rivers can move, something along those lines. The water's not always dependable and always predictable, okay? The other part of that is you are gonna have to move your factory to the river. And that might not be where your customers are, but it doesn't matter because you need the water power. Later, we're gonna have our second power source, and that is steam power. Now you can move your factory anywhere you want. And when you move it into the city where your customers are, now it makes it easier for you to hire women and children, okay? So Samuel Slater, and we'll have more about that in just a minute. Samuel Slater, go ahead and put this in your notes. Why is he in the history book? What does he do? He memorizes how you make these machines. These machines are guarded secrets. You could not just take this machine out of England. They would not let you do that. They want to keep this technology to themselves. He memorizes how you make the machine. He brings it to America. Okay, Francis Lowell's Mills. These are called the Lowell's Mills, or you sometimes refer to them as Lowell's Mills girls. Okay, he's kinder than average, and he makes sure that the girls that work for him get an education. I want you to read that as our primary source, so that'll be attached to the video. Excerpts from the Lowell's Mills girls. Please read it. And when you read it, I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to, they don't want to work. They want to go to school. And you read that and you're living their dream. Their dream is to maximize their brain. They know that they're smart and they'll never get developed educationally because they have to spend so much time in the factory. And so I want you to think about when you're at school, hey, look, this beats working. And you're going to work smarter. That way you don't have to work harder. Fair enough? Okay. Hope I'm encouraging you with that.
This meant that for the first time in history, large numbers of human lives began to be regulated by clocks and the ringing of factory bells. For example, the schedule seen here shows that in 1874, the long workday at the Lowell Mills began at 6:45 in the morning and ended at 6 in the evening, except on Saturday, when it ended at 4:30. On Sunday, however, workers were given a day off. The Industrial Revolution came to America mainly through two instances of what today would be called industrial espionage, or industrial spying. The spying occurred because the designs of English textile machines were carefully guarded secrets. They had brought England so much wealth that laws prohibited shipping the machines out of the country for fear that people might copy them. The first case of industrial spying took place sometime in the 1780s, when a man who had been employed at an English spinning factory named Samuel Slater memorized every detail of how the machines were built. He moved to the United States the year George Washington was elected president and had copies made of the English machines. Then he...
Question, This is more for like when you're in high school, but I want you to know what vertical integration is. It's when you own each step of the process. The best example I got for you is gasoline, okay? Vertical integration means you own the oil rig that gets the oil out of the ground. You own the oil refinery. You might own the truck that takes it to the Maverick, and then you own the gas station. So you own every step of the process. That is called vertical integration. Horizontal integration is when you own all of one particular step. So let's take, for example, the Mavericks. If you owned all the gas stations, that's horizontal integration. That's also called a monopoly. Okay, vertical integration, not a monopoly. Horizontal integration is a monopoly. Quick video.
Yes, vertical integration has worked well. It's an important part of what we do. It starts with our donor shops, which are supplied by our distribution system, which is supplied in part by our bakery mix manufacturing system. Each system is a separate profit center. This allows us to better track that segment's performance, as well as the employees in each segment can focus on that segment's performance as well. Vertical integration allows us to maximize profit opportunities. In addition to retail profits at the shops, we also enjoy the distribution and manufacturing profits on the supplies used at the shops. Vertical integration allows us to control the quality of the supplies used at the shops. For our bakery mixes, we know exactly what ingredients and what processes were used. We know how those products were stored and delivered. In addition, we can easily modify formulas to improve product performance or roll out new products. Vertical integration diversifies business risk. A downturn in retail sales can be partially offset by our distribution and manufacturing sales. In short, we're better able to weather economic downturns. The key to our vertical integration is having enough shops or volume to justify the initial investment and ongoing overhead of maintaining our own distribution and manufacturing companies.
All right, welcome back. So Amazon makes the Xbox controller. They own the website that sells it to you, and then they have their own delivery truck that brings it to you. What kind of integration is that? Vertical integration, very good. All right, mass production. So before we had factories, when we had this cottage industry, you might make one table, and then you would make another table, and each part is almost a unique piece. Nothing's really that identical. Mass production allows you to make more items and make them quicker. But instead of you making a table, you might just make the leg for a table, or you might just make one part of the machine. Does that make sense? So you don't make, there's less craftsmanship, but there's more speed. And so that's what mass production is. That's what's happening here. The guy that gets credit for interchangeable parts is Eli Whitney. You need to know this about Eli Whitney. Interchangeable parts and cotton gin. Okay, so don't get that confused. You get 2 for 1 if you know what this guy did. I believe he needed to make rifles, and so instead of saying, you know, you make 10 rifles, you make 10 rifles, he said, you make all the barrels, you make all the triggers, and then we'll put them together at the end. Voila, okay, interchangeable parts. Big deal. Here it is, page 387 in your book. If you want to go online, your book is online, you can read this. If you don't read it, just know it says you start work 7 to 8 and you're working 12-hour days. So that's what you would have been doing. Suddenly school doesn't sound so bad, right? Okay, cool. Don't forget to read the primary source, Lowell's Girls. So the cities, you've moved your factory. First power source was what? Water. Second one is steam. Okay, so now you can move your factory into the city. But now you have everybody working and living in the city. The cities are going to become a little dirtier, a little more dangerous, but they're going to grow. Okay, so we have the growth. All right, so now we're on part 2 of chapter 11. We're going to talk about that cotton gin, which I alluded to earlier. Who made the cotton gin? Who invented that? Eli Whitney, okay? And then we're going to have the Missouri Compromise. Big deal, little deal, no deal, big deal. So make sure you know what that is, okay? It allows 2 states to enter the union, but there's a little bit more than that. Make sure we talk about that. And then what are the slave codes? We're going to learn about that as well. It enforced slaves as property in the eyes of the law. So look at this north-south divide just in the pictures. The South is providing the raw materials for the Industrial Revolution. So the South has the cotton, the South has all of the agriculture, and then the North has the machines to make all of the goods. okay? So the cotton engine or the cotton gin, okay, removes the seeds from the cotton incredibly fast. When you can do that, it makes cotton more valuable. And then that's going to have a negative impact in the sense that if cotton's more valuable, you're going to want more people to pick the cotton, and then that's going to increase slavery. Okay, so the cotton gin indirectly is responsible for the increase in slavery. Here's what a cotton gin looks like. Okay, welcome back. I do mention this because this cotton gin is a very famous invention, has a great financial impact and a large historical impact, but Eli Whitney doesn't make any money off it, really. He wants 2/5 of all the profits, so the farmers just say, no, man, we'll make it ourselves. He spends most of his money on legal battles and gets really no money from the invention. So here we go. I want you to see slavery is an issue, but that issue is getting bigger. That problem is growing. There was a time around 1790, 1800, where people thought, okay, yeah, slavery is a cancer on the United States, but it's shrinking. It's growing away. It's going away. And if we just wait long enough, the problem will solve itself. Now the cotton gin comes along. The problem isn't going away. The problem's growing, okay? And there's economic reasons behind that. And so I want you to see, as cotton production increases, the amount of slavery within the United States also increases. Here's the distribution of cotton, and then the distribution and growth of slaves. So you can see there's a direct relationship to growing more cotton and needing or having more slaves. Okay? This is the social hierarchy in the South. You have planters, small farmers, poor farmers, and then slaves. The distribution of slavery in the South, most people don't own slaves. 25% of people still own at least one. But as far as those giant plantations that we see in the movie, that's a little bit, well, the numbers speak for themselves. Okay. So the South is going to say, well, hey, because now the North is saying, hey, slavery is immoral. What are you guys doing? And the South is going to say, well, it's actually more humane than what you've got up there in the North with your factory system, okay? Because our slaves, they don't have to worry about housing, or they don't have to worry about employment. And then the North is going to say, whoa, 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 whoa. Factory workers can always quit, and there's no substitute for freedom. And slaves, they suffer from abuse, okay? So we can see the North and South, they're fighting, okay? Just a little bit. The water, remember I talk about the water's bubbling? Okay, the water's boiling, man. It's rolling now, okay? The slave codes, this is unbelievable. It treats people as property under the law. So this is the legal justification for breaking up families, okay? You can't, because if it's a person, if it's people, you can't break the family up. But if the slave is just property, then you can sell different family members to different plantations. Does that make sense? Okay, here's the Nat Turner revolt. Nat Turner has a dream that says there's going to be an eclipse and that he needs to revolt and he needs to free the slaves. And so in 1831, he leads a slave revolt and it kills 60 white people. And now there's going to be anger and real real suspicion by the slave owners, okay? And so it's unbelievable. So please know what Nat Turner's slave revolt is, okay? And here's a quick video.
Nat Turner's 1831 slave rebellion stuns the nation and pushes the South's slave policing system to its limits.
For white Virginians and white slaveholders across the South, it was a shock.
The paranoia shoots off the scale. 50 dead today, how many dead tomorrow?
In Southampton County, Virginia, Nat Turner, an enslaved preacher, has his own interpretation of the Bible. He believes that God has chosen him to avenge the sins of slavery. As Turner makes his rounds preaching in the fields, he quietly enlists other slaves to his cause. For months, the men meet secretly, conspiring on the plans of their uprising. In the early morning hours of August 21st, 1831, Turner and his men launch one of the largest slave rebellions in American history. The rebels move from home to home, killing every white person they meet. As they advance towards the nearby town of Jerusalem, more recruits join them. The local slave patrols have failed to uncover Turner's plot. So the militia is called out to track down and kill the rebels. For 36 hours, the rebellion rages on. Church bells ring out in distress. Rumors spread among whites that the whole southern slave population has finally exploded in revolt, and that the British are invading to liberate the slaves. As panic swells, the United States government provides important military support. And that support is ensured by slaveholder power.
Don't forget that slavery is protected not only by the slaveholder, not only by the local militia or the state militia, but also by the full force of the military might of the United States of America. Except for that, slavery would not have been possible in the South.
As the hunt for Nat Turner and his men continues, 800 U.S. troops join 2,000 local militiamen. Within a week, the rebellion is squashed. More than 50 rebels are captured. Nearly 60 white men, women, and children have been killed. The violence doesn't fully subside until Nat Turner is captured 2 months later on October 31st, not by a patrol or slave catcher, but by a farmer, by accident. Turner is tried, hanged, and skinned. In all, the state executes 55 black people for conspiring with Turner.
The Turner Rebellion frightened whites literally out of their minds, and yet even that wasn't strong enough to provoke them to get rid of slavery as an institution.
Because for slave owners, profit outweighs morality and their own safety. By 1830, nearly 2 million slaves are fueling the Southern economy, and slaveholders aren't about to give up their free labor. And still, slaves run, and slave hunters expand their networks for tracking them.
Welcome back. Remember the proclamation of 1863 where we can't go across the Appalachian Mountains? Okay, that's gone. Look how far we've expanded already. And now we're going to need something.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
We need roads, okay? So Turnpike, Corduroy Road, Corduroy Road, National Road. I want to mention the National Road, first federally funded road. When our country starts, we don't even want the national government to have enough power to make roads. Okay, we are very fearful of the national government having too much power. But there's always that debate. Is the road an expenditure or an investment? You invest in this road, that increases what? Trade. What says more trade, more money? Capitalism, the economic system we live in today. The more you trade, the more money you'll have, the more wealth you'll create. So take a look at some of these roads. They're obviously dangerous, especially if you're a horse, okay? And then we have the Erie Canal, not that much later, 1825. And so you'll be able to move stuff. Water is the cheapest way, still today, water is the cheapest way to move goods across long distances. Here's a quick video about the Erie Canal.
363 miles of water highway, 8 years of construction, thousands of man-hours of labor. But by the time it was done, 3,000 canal boats traveled the new corridor from Albany to Buffalo. Now, the Erie Canal on Modern Marvels.
In the woods off the interstate in western New York, a narrow ditch surrounded by a tangle of weeds is all that remains here of one of America's greatest engineering achievements.
I got a mule and her name is Sal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. She's a
Celebrated in story and song, the Erie Canal began construction in 1817. It was the first commercial link between New York and the American West. Thousands of canal boats made the journey from the Hudson River to Lake Erie during the canal's 150-year history, making the Erie Canal America's first superhighway. Though the Erie Canal went through 3 separate rebuildings and upgrades, it was the original canal of the early 19th century, 40 feet wide and 4 feet deep, that changed our world and consolidated the strength of a young nation.
And in very real sense, it united the country in ways that no other event of its time could do. It was indeed a world-famous engineering marvel.
It truly is the backbone of the Empire State. It led to the creation of the Empire State, helped New York become the financial capital of the world.
One analogy I like to make is that it's very much like the internet today, that people really viewed it as something that was amazing, that was unprecedented, that was very much changing their lives.
Almost as soon as the ink was dry on the U.S. Constitution, the new nation began looking west to the vast resources and abundant land of the frontier. Yet America faced an obstacle to its rapid expansion. It was called the Appalachians. The backbone of mountain that stretches from the southern tip of the Smokies to as far north as Maine had always been a barrier preventing the simple exchange of goods and services between the abundant West and the civilized East. The American West was simply cut off from the Atlantic coast cities, except at one location.
The Appalachian Mountains do a very curious thing. Coming from Alabama, going northward. When they get to Pennsylvania, they veer nearly east and then turn north again through what is now New England.
This twist in the Appalachian chain provides the one place in America where a major river, the Hudson, flows from west of the mountains to the Atlantic. But the Hudson River runs north. What was needed was a connection directly west, through the Mohawk River Valley and beyond. The best way to exploit the opening at Albany was a canal. In the late 1700s, canals were the obvious method of moving freight and goods.
Water was and still is the cheapest form of transportation, most economical. When you look at per ton mile, it takes a lot less energy and your costs are a lot less. It's a lot smoother. There are no potholes in water like there are in even our today paved roads, much less the old dirt roads.
Okay, welcome back. This is it. Finish strong. Here we go. Missouri Compromise. 1820, Maine enters as a free state. Missouri enters as a slave state. And then notice that line, the 3630 line. I don't expect you to know that name per se. Just be able to see it on a map and understand there's supposed to be no more slavery above that line. Now see, cotton doesn't grow above that line in any major way. And so it didn't matter to them whether we had slavery up north because you needed the slaves to grow the cotton, and the cotton grows in the south. Does that make sense? That's a little bit of that physical geography, human geography. So I want you to know that. Missouri Compromise, what do you need to know? Maine is a free state. Missouri is a slave state, no slavery above the line. Perfect. I like this quote. Southerners did not like Congress making laws about slavery. Northerners did not like Congress allowing slavery to expand. We've got a wolf by the ears. We can't hold on, but we don't dare let go. Okay, that's sort of where our country is going into, spoiler alert again, we're going to have the Civil War, but I want you to see how this friction between the two sides is building. The Civil War does not happen overnight. It happens over, as the tension over decades and the friction gets increased. So I hope you enjoyed Chapter 11. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat box, ask your classmates, and then don't forget to read the primary source and take the quiz next class period. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you back here next week.